Welcome back again to our discussion of how to bring in user tools to Accordance. And we're going to be discussing today user tools from a scanned file. And so, as we'll begin, we want to talk about the steps that are involved in conversion. And the first one is the preparation in order to provide the document to be imported into Accordance. So, to do that, we need to talk about scanners and settings. We need to talk about OCR and then some pre-processing editing before it is brought into Accordance. Then before the file is imported, we've got to process it in a program like Microsoft Word. And so we're going to talk about converting from Word or to RTF, rich text format, cleanup of the text, and then finally the use of styles for titles. As we begin this preparation, we want to talk about scanning a document. And the best thing I can say is if you provide better quality in, you will definitely get better quality out. Taking the time to make sure that the scanner that you use and the settings you use are set properly to get a good OCR. I will be using two different types of scanners. I use a ScanSnap by Fujitsu, which is a page scanner, scans back and front about 30 pages per minute. But you can slow it down and get a much better scan. And again, if you provide better quality in, you'll get better quality out. I also use a Ricoh C4502 that we have in the church office, and it will do a good job and sometimes is better at handling paper, but it will scan to PDF and then I can email the file to myself. Part of this is the key of having the settings set properly. You want higher resolution so that you can get a better OCR. This will create larger files, but it gives you a much better accuracy when the OCR program is running. I recommend scanning at least at 300 dpi. Once you pass 300 dpi, it begins to just make much larger files. Most people will scan to PDF, but some will scan to Word. And it's very possible that you have a scan that someone else has done as they scan to PDF. It's important to talk about PDF software where one uses OCR, that is optical character recognition. And there are much different levels and qualities of the software. For instance, I use Adobe Acrobat Pro, and there are two types of recognition of text in it. The one that is most often used is called ClearScan, and it makes smaller files, but often it creates formatting issues. And I will show you a file that I scanned just earlier and show you the difference in it. Also, my scanner came with the Abby Fine Reader, and it is an excellent OCR. If you have to buy it, it's about $100, so it's a rather expensive one. There are others like Wondershare PDF Editor Pro, which I got in a package deal, which works pretty good. And then there are some online ones like www.free-ocr.com. Depending upon the quality of your scan, will tell you whether or not you get a really good OCR. I will offer one tip though. If you want to not have headers and footers show up in your OCR, if you will crop pages before you run the OCR, you can eliminate, for instance, books that have headers, that have chapter titles or perhaps authors' names at the top, and also page numbers, which will save a lot of time when it comes to cleaning up text. I want to give you a sample of using Acrobat Pro, Abby Fine Reader, and Wondershare to give you some kind of idea of how these work. And so what I'm going to do is to go to the desktop, and I'm going to first of all open the file, and I scanned the Living Way class book, the adult series on Romans, written by James Bales. And this book here, if you will notice the scan, looks really good, and you will notice that there's some handwritings and things such in the margin. But as you continue on, you'll notice that the text is pretty good. Now, I will show you the difference in what this would look like if, for instance, you were using Adobe Acrobat. And when I open this, and I'm going to bring it to a larger size here to page width, you'll see that the ClearScan did not give you a very good conversion. In fact, very poor. On the other hand, if I come back and I open the one that was done by Wondershare, you will see that it also has some problems. The leaders in front of the page numbers became lines, but if you'll notice, the text itself looks pretty good. I will tell you one other thing though, that let me bring this to page width again. But if you will notice, at the end of each line you get a carriage return. That is a characteristic problem when you're using OCR software. But as I choose the third one, and that is using the Fine Reader, and again I'm going to open it in Microsoft Word. If you'll notice now, you get a much better, and even the leaders before the page numbers look really good. And if you will notice, at the end of each of the lines you do not get a carriage return. And so as a person begins to say, well, if I didn't have to take care of all those other problems, then this would definitely save me a lot of time as I prepare to bring it in. So let's return now to our following on this, and we're going to talk about converting to Microsoft Word. Now, once you have it in Word, you need to clean the file up. And in order to clean it up, there's some things that I do normally. The first thing is to standardize the font face and size and paragraph formatting. For instance, I may choose Times New Roman, size 12. And my paragraph formatting, I will have it with no space before or after. I will have it aligned justified left. That way everything will have some standardization and I can see problems before they arise. Second of all is how to deal with carriage returns. And if you'll remember in the samples that I showed you, that some of them have a carriage return at the end of each line, and they will have at the end of each paragraph 2 carriage returns. An easy way to fix this is to put %% as a replacement for a double carriage return, that is, return, and then go back and remove all the carriage returns by doing the replace, find carriage return, replace with nothing, and then go back and replace the %% with a carriage return. That way you just get a carriage return at the end of each line. The next thing I usually do is to search for white space, which is real easy with Microsoft Word, and then to replace that with a single space. There's also an issue that develops because of words being hyphenated at the end of a line, is that generally you will end with a dangling space after a hyphen because it occurs at the end of the line. So generally what I will do is, after I have done all the previous things, is to search for hyphen space and then just replace that with a hyphen. And then finally I'll run a spell check on the document so that I've got a good document cleaned up in Word ready now to import. Before you import, the last thing you need to do is to use styles for the titles and subtitles. And in order to do this, you use the style heading 1 for major titles and heading 2 for subtitles. And once you've got that done, then you can export and save as HTML filtered. If you say, well, I'm using Word 2011 and it does not have that, you simply save as a web page. But if you have Word 2016 or Word 365, save as a web page HTML filtered. And now you're ready to import it into Accordance.